we are very grateful to the Prime Minister for having underlined the fact that this support will continue and it's a long-term commitment, and that the second phase of the India Semiconductor Mission is under preparation. The first, currently we are expecting almost about $30 billion worth of support from both the federal government, the central government here in India, and the governments of the various states, some of whom are represented here and present here. Now, primarily about 10 billion of this support has come through the India Semiconductor Mission Phase 1, which has supported the semiconductor fabs and display fabs, compound semiconductors and ATMPs, and there you've truly seen execution. You've seen the way that something which was on paper as policy as recently as 3-4 years ago has now shifted and moved to actually becoming reality. Today, the memento that the Minister for Electronics and Information Technology presented to the Prime Minister showed all the chips that had been taped out and brought out as a result of various initiatives of ISM. All of them, either some of them were made entirely in India, but some of them were those which had been designed in India and taped out elsewhere. So I think that's a very significant symbol of what has been achieved so far under the India Semiconductor Mission. And the design-linked incentive scheme, as was pointed out, close to about 350 institutions which have been supported there, and something which is very key and critical. And what gives me satisfaction today to announce to you and to tell you is that almost the entire funding under the India Semiconductor Mission has been fully committed, including the last 2 or 3 straggling projects which need to be picked up. And with that, we would put an end to the India Semiconductor Mission Phase 1, and that leaves the space open for us to actually make the announcement and put in the public domain the India Semiconductor Mission Phase 2, on which, as the Prime Minister indicated, a fair bit of work has advanced and we are at close to the final stages. In addition to supporting the semiconductors itself, on the electronics side, we made available close to another $10 billion of support. The scheme which is currently open is the Electronics Component Manufacturing Scheme, which has been very well received across various participants. The date is still open till the 30th of September, till the end of this month, for companies to apply there. It's an extremely focused scheme which sort of builds around what has been created in the India Semiconductor Mission and builds back from what was tried and what is continuing to be worked on under the production-linked incentive schemes. There are 2 schemes in the electronics sector, one which relates to mobile phones primarily, which is incidentally the most successful of the 14 production-linked incentive schemes which have been launched by the Government of India so far. And the other one is the production-linked incentive scheme for IT hardware, which is currently under implementation this year. 25-26 fiscal year is the critical year there, and many IT hardware majors, including the likes of HP and Dell and Acer and Asus, are participants in the scheme and should be looking to make their equipment here in India. And in addition to that, of course, we have had capital subsidy-linked schemes for component and sub-assembly manufacture in India, and also for development of electronic manufacturing clusters across different parts of India. Those have been a fair number as well. In addition to these, which support electronics primarily, we also have programs, because electronics and semiconductors are used in a wide range of other sectors, and we have programs which support development of those sectors as well, including battery storage, including automobiles and auto components, telecom and networking, solar PV modules, and white goods, all places where the semiconductors are used. So overall, it's close to about a $30 billion worth of support from the Government of India, and this is supplemented in many cases by almost similar support from many of the state governments. So you would find that policy support for each of these sectors is extremely significant and something which would interest a range of companies. Moving on to where we stand, and of course, this is more like history now because these were the 4 components of the India Semiconductor Mission Phase 1, which I briefly outlined, and the extent of support which is provided. Now, in the India Semiconductor Mission Phase 2, we would be expanding the kind of support which is offered to include players who are part of the ecosystem. That includes people who are part of the equipment manufacture, people who are part of materials intended for semiconductor equipment, companies which do gases, companies which do testing. So a whole range of the ecosystem players would also be supported in addition to these 4 verticals. But it's useful to know that this is the background, this is how the first scheme was designed, and this is the basis on which we've achieved all that we've achieved so far. This is almost, as I said, fully committed, and it's on the success of this program that we are building our program, which will be announced shortly. As I already pointed out, in the semiconductor program, you can expect a level of support, particularly for fabs and particularly for advanced packaging, a level of support which is unprecedented, definitely in India. I've spent 36 years in public service as part of governments. I've never come across in all these years a program which is as generous as industrial policy. Support which almost amounts to 70% of the cost of a particular project, and more than anything else, this 70% is disbursed on a pari passu basis, even as it is getting implemented, rather than only after it is fully implemented. So this is something which this assistance of this level will definitely continue for certain segments which are crucial and important, and that's something which we will continue to support. The target segments, as I said, semiconductor fabs, display fabs. Display fabs is still an area we are looking out for. So in ISM2, that will be a crucial element of what we will be looking for, and various other devices, which again is a critical area of focus for us. Now, of course, under SEMICON 2, we talk about the 10 programs. Many of you are well aware of this history. We have, of course, the Tata Semiconductor Fab at Dholera, which is currently under construction. Both Tata and PSMC are represented here today, and that is something we are eagerly looking forward to as the construction is going on and it gets built out. Micron is also represented today. Their work is at an advanced stage, and when the Prime Minister said that by the end of this year, in 2025, we will have the first commercially produced chip from India, this is the facility from which we expect it to be available. Tata's facility in Assam, the northeastern state, is also currently under construction, and a fair amount of work is happening around the ecosystem which has to be built there and the entire skilling enterprise. Last week, the minister was in Gujarat to inaugurate the pilot plant of CG Power along with Renesas in Sanand in Gujarat, and the first semiconductor chip fully made in India, which was part of the memento which was presented to the Prime Minister, included a chip from this facility. Likewise, Keynes Technology, you saw in the morning's video, is currently under construction, and their pilot facility is also close to coming online and getting implemented. These were the further projects which have been approved. There's a compound fab in ATMP 6M, which is in Orissa, which explains why the Honorable Chief Minister of Orissa was also present here today. There are 2 projects which are located in Orissa, both 6M and 3D glass. And both of these are unique projects, and both of these are projects which require considerable skill, and although they are relatively smaller compared to the other projects, they are important and key projects in terms of being pioneering projects in India. HCL and Foxconn, again, people who are present here today, are launching a fairly advanced packaging chip unit in Uttar Pradesh, the neighboring state from Delhi. and CDIL, which is one of the oldest semiconductor facilities here in India, more than half a century old, is also expanding. And ASIP, which is a new facility, is coming up with their facility in Telangana, in Andhra Pradesh, I'm sorry, in the southern state of Andhra Pradesh. The Design-Linked Incentive Scheme I already spoke about, and this is one of the key programs which we will be looking to expand in the days to come. Thus far, it has been confined to startups and to SMEs. We are looking to expand that scope. Likewise, we are looking to expand the kind of assistance we will be providing for this particular incentive scheme, both in terms of a grant and also improving access to risk capital. And today, I think a very significant announcement was made by Celesta Capital of the new fund which they are creating, and which will build on the RDI initiative, which has been announced and approved by the Indian Cabinet last month. And both of that together will create a risk capital mechanism which will also finance what is happening in the semiconductor design space. And that's going to be a critical step forward, and the design-linked incentive scheme will be recast to actually support this segment in a far more effective way. But I think what we need to understand in this, and I'd just like to highlight this point again, the point which was made about the number of people who are getting trained in the use of EDA tools and in the design of semiconductors. Almost 60,000 students already trained, almost 280 institutions. In addition, there are 72 startups which are using these tools. And more than anything else, the point that, and this is something we started logging carefully to make sure that whatever is being supplied free of cost doesn't go unutilized. There's one thing to say that these tools are available for people to access, but another thing to ensure that these tools are actually used. And that is where I think we've had significant uptake, and we've logged 13 million hours just in 2025, in calendar year 2025, of students actually using these tools. And I think that is what is truly significant and makes such a difference. And of course, we developed these high-tech clusters, which the Prime Minister mentioned. We are attempting demand aggregation in certain sectors, particularly in those areas where there are security and other concerns. For example, if you take CCTV cameras in some of these areas, then I think that's something we're doing. Then the R&D and skill development and training is something which is critical and which we are working on. And as the roadmap is for 85,000 people to be trained, of whom 60,000 are already covered, as we found out. And of course, we will expand this further as we go along. And what's most important, and what this morning's event really underlined, is that it's a matter of international collaboration. We have companies, we have countries, we have governments across the world who are supporting this. We have ongoing MOUs with the United States, with Japan, with the European Union, with Singapore, and with Netherlands, which are all functioning very effectively. They cover a range of issues. They cover issues like how do we maintain the supply chains. They cover issues of, how do we train personnel, and how do we ensure that the industry which is being established in India gets supported. And some of these discussions are at a very, very high level. So that was again something which was on display and show earlier this morning, and something which will continue to support what we do in the India Semiconductor Mission. And of course, we will, as I mentioned to you, all of these elements, and added to that some more elements, including equipment and tool manufacture, components and sub-assemblies, the semiconductor grade raw materials, chemicals and gases. Ultimately, it's about purity. We heard the CEO of Merck tell us about what is the level of purity that semiconductor materials need. Those are the kind of materials which will need to be produced in India if it is to be truly a participant in a resilient supply chain. and of course adding to the test facilities, as I mentioned, and also, as I described to you already in the design-linked incentive scheme, what is it that we can do further? So all these are efforts which India will continue to support, and I can assure you that even this event this morning, all your presence here, and the words which the Honorable Prime Minister had for all of us this morning truly will inspire us and will make sure that this is something which we will continue to focus on. This is a job which will get done. As they often say, well begun is half done, and I think the first phase of the ISM program has been the well begun part, where it is getting grounded, where things are moving fast. We heard Mr. Ajit Manochar talk about exponential and unprecedented growth. So that is a path on which we will continue to tread on. And I think truly one of the problems of performing so well early on is the expectations that it raises. And so we are acutely conscious that we need to continue to live up to those expectations. And that is something we will continue to do. And let me leave you finally with these words of definitely India will be there for you as a resilient supply chain partner, and we will make in India for the world in the days to come. Thank you very much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the key initiatives being taken by the Government of India, shaping the future of semiconductor and display manufacturing in the country, and also the Honorable Prime Minister in the inaugural session said, the power, the true power in the 21st century lies in semiconductors. Let's give a round of applause and thank Shri S. Krishnan for a highly encouraging keynote address. Thank you very much, sir. We now move on. Our next esteemed keynote speaker is Mr. Christophe Fouquet, the CEO of ASML, and as we are all aware, ASML is based in the Netherlands, is the sole global supplier of heart of semiconductor manufacturing tools, EUV lithography systems required for manufacturing cutting-edge chips at sub-7 nm nodes. Ladies and gentlemen, we India know Atithi Devo Bhava. So please put your hands together and let's welcome Mr. Christophe Fouquet.
Okay, super. Thank you very much. So, oops. I'll wait for the presentation to come up. Here we go. So I was quite happy this morning, of course, to hear the Honorable Prime Minister express his interest for technology. As some of you know, ASML is a lot about technology. And I think we truly believe that whatever progress may be happening anywhere, technology is going to be a very part of it. So I'm going to talk about that today. I think I'm also going to talk about India, but I don't think I will be able to do the same good job as my predecessor here on stage. And I will explain you basically how we believe that technology can basically bring this ecosystem to India. So we talked a lot this morning about the fact that semiconductors are everywhere. And AI is also coming to be everywhere. So what you have just seen are a few pictures of some of the innovation that were presented at CES, but practically anything that we do today, anything that our modern world is going to develop, is going to be based on semiconductor and is going to be based on AI. And this, of course, generates a major opportunity. Opportunity for basic semiconductor, and opportunity for more advanced semiconductor. That will be the basis basically for AI. And what you see on this graph also is that AI itself has the ability to increase significantly our GDP in the coming years. And I think it was explained very well this morning. India is a growing economic power, and chips has been called the diamond, while oil was the black gold. And I think that with our chips, basically, being able to grow GDP very aggressively will be very difficult. So I think that the focus on chips also here in India makes a lot of sense. So to illustrate that, you know, AI will be at the center of everything. AI is going to generate major application, and this is going to be a mix of storing data, generating data with very advanced semiconductor and computing that. And the interaction between those two basically is going to create our next generation opportunity. And if we look at India, so some of those numbers have been expressed already, the 100 billion market by 2030, which is more than 10% of the total worldwide market. 50,000 wafer start every month. This is basically the plan of Tata initially when it comes to semicon manufacturing. I think a very important number is the number of engineers graduating every year in India. 1.5 million, which of course is extremely important. This is basically the pool of talent many people have referred to today. And already some activity around developing very strong professional around semiconductor. The 85,000 numbers have been given a few times. And finally, Tata, together with Powerchip, taking a bit the lead when it comes to semiconductor manufacturing. So all of this create basically also an opportunity here in India, and this is also why ASML felt it's a good time to come and start work very deeply with all the different partners here. Now, this will be possible only by the combination of advanced semiconductor and mainstream semiconductor. Today, those semiconductors are being manufactured in different parts of the world. It is very important that basically the world continue to collaborate, continue to be open so that we can exchange basically easily this technology because everything is needed. And when it comes to India, I think what we'll see first potentially is mainstream semiconductor, but very quickly it will move also to advance. So I cannot talk about technology without showing you this. I think anyone who knows about semiconductor knows about Moore's law. So this is a law basically that says that every 2 years the density of semiconductor will continue to advance. And this is still true today. And maybe India will start a bit late on this law, as your Prime Minister explained this morning, but I think that there will be a need also to advance very, very quickly in order to catch up and get to advanced semiconductor. So this is a bit what Gordon Moore was explaining a few years ago, the ability to continue together as an ecosystem to double through innovation the density of transistor in order to continue to create more and more advanced application. This is still true today, and one of the way this has been possible basically is by the use of lithography. And this is where ASML will come into play. You see here basically example of the technology that Moore's law has been driving. So it started in 1964 with some very rudimentary computer. If you look, of course, 2024, so 60 years after that, we all talk about NVIDIA chips, we all talk about AI, but what you see here is that this has been possible through a succession of technology innovation that has allowed to put a lot more transistor per chip. You're looking now at 150 billion of transistor per chip, going towards 1 trillion by 2030. But also very importantly, doing that while being able to reduce the cost of the chips. So you see that a gigabyte was costing $15 million in 1964. It costs today 0.0012. So that innovation has been key basically to the entire success of this industry. Lithography has played its part. So what you see here basically is a wafer, a chips, and we go very deep into that, looking at the different layers put on top of each other to create the chips. And at the very bottom of that is the need basically to print very, very thin features. Today, we are talking on the most advanced technology about feature of the size of about 8 nanometer lines. So 8 nanometer is a very small number. And to give you an idea of what it represents, we took a human hair, And the human hair is basically 80,000 nanometer, which is 10,000 of the lines I was talking about before. So this is the type of technology you have today in the semiconductor industry. Not yet in India, but I'm sure that after what we heard this morning, this is also an ambition. And how do we do that? We do that basically by using lithography system, because the lithography system is the tool that is going to print on the wafer the pattern you need in order to achieve this device. And we have been doing that in ASML for many, many years, for more than 40 years, all the way to basically creating an EUV technology. Why EUV? Because the small size of the feature you get on a wafer, the critical dimension, defined as CD on this slide, is basically defined by the longer of the wavelengths you're going to use, divided by the numerical aperture of the tool. So the shorter the wavelengths and the higher the NA, the smaller the resolution you're going to be able to print. EUV is about wavelengths. And we have been driving these wavelengths down over time from 436 nanometer with G-line, which is still being used today, to 13.5 nanometer with EUV. And this has been a journey basically of 40 years in ASML. And in parallel to that, we've been playing also with DNA, lately with EUV as well, in order to increase it as much as possible to reduce the resolution. So today, when you look at the latest machine, the INA EUV tool, we are looking at 8 nanometer resolution. And to give you an idea of what we're looking at, 8 nanometer resolution, so another comparison, you see it on the right here, the smallest virus that is known today is about 18 to 28 nanometer. So we are dealing with the type of size, the type of technology that is, of course, almost going beyond what the human mind can really conceive. So this is what it does, and this is a bit how it does it. So this is a bit of a picture of our latest systems. I wanted to bring you that so that you have an idea a bit of the complexity, also of the size. And the INA EUV machine is basically the combination of so many knowledge across the industry. So it's not only about ASML, it's about a lot of different scientists, suppliers, people that came together basically to be able to create this tool. And none of this can be done basically from scratch. This requires a lot of knowledge put together, a lot of collaboration basically in order to be able to do that. And as we speak, this tool is being rolled out to our most advanced customer to create the next generation of chips. Now, one element I'd like to stress on EUV, just to, again, give you an idea of technology. So to get UV light today, the only place to get that is the sun. Well, we don't have the sun, so we had to create this light artificially. How did we do that? Simple, I was about to say. Not really simple, but what we do basically is take a droplet of tin and hit this droplet with a very high powerful laser. Now, the challenge is that we have to do that 60,000 times per second, and we always have to hit the droplet in the right place. And this creates basically a plasma of 500,000 degrees Celsius, reproducing if you're on the condition we have on the sun. So that's the kind of technology that is being used today in semiconductor advanced manufacturing. And that's the kind of technology that over time we all hope India will see in order to be able to create the most advanced chips. So if we look at the industry, we talked about this morning. I think you have seen all my peers showing all together the same enthusiasm basically to support India's semiconductor ambitions. And that will require us to work with customers, with partners, with equipment suppliers, with academia. All of this, all those people have to come together basically in order to be able to make this ambition happen. And few things we have to do is first, of course, commit to innovation, bring the innovation to our customer. Now, the good news is that this industry has experience, and because of this experience, there's the ability to catch up. So yes, maybe India is just starting, Yes, we just see the first few fabs, but a lot of people with a lot of experience will be able to bring basically their knowledge in order to catch up. That's a bit, I would say, what the industry have done with China in the last 10, 15 years. The second thing is about infrastructure. There also it's very important, and I think we have seen tremendous progress happening in India. This is very important to be able to move material, to move people, to communicate. And the other thing is going to be to really work together in the fabs, in the factory, in order to make things happen. And this is basically what we see happening and what we expect to grow extremely quickly between now and 2028, where I think we will see this 50,000 wafer start at least in place. And finally, long-term research, long-term academic tracks is also very important because we need to work together in educating basically the next set of people in India that will learn about all this technology. And what we have done in the past, in this case, is engage with university in order basically to create this opportunity. So we are getting ready for all of that. And when it comes to ASML, so of course we will bring the technology I've shown you, the technology we're very proud of, but this technology comes basically with an entire ecosystem that we've been working with basically for many, many years. You see that this includes some of our peers in the industry because we work very, very closely together in order to make that a success. And we will be mobilizing basically this entire ecosystem, this entire set of knowledge, and bring it here in India in the coming years in order to make this ambition, in order to make this vision a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Christophe Fouquet, for your highly enlightening keynote address. We now move on. Our next keynote speaker is Dr. Satish Kupurao, a Group Vice President who is responsible for business development and growth at Applied Materials, Semiconductor Products Group, SPG. He has held several important positions in his highly illustrious career. He has got more than 30 years of experience in the semiconductor equipment industry, driving product innovation and commercializing technologies. Without much ado, please put your hands together and let's welcome Mr. Satish.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for the kind invitation to present here in the keynote on behalf of SEMI as well. My name is Satish, and I head the business development for Applied Materials. And I don't think it's a new name in India. We've been here for a very, very long time. Today, my intention is just to show you the journey that we have taken here and where is the industry going next. We titled this Vision to Velocity, and I'm going to follow up on Prabhu's address today morning in the keynote before Prime Minister Modi's speech. So we know that the semiconductors, and I think many speakers have alluded to this, they are the foundation, building block for almost every technology revolution that's happening today in the world. And these are some of the big ones that are going to change our lives fundamentally in the future. We all know about the AI wave that is actually gripping the entire world and changing it in many ways. So by some estimates here, just the data center market for AI might be worth about $8 trillion just in a few years from now. And then when you actually layer edge AI, inferencing devices, and IoT, that could be worth another $2 trillion. And electronic vehicle and autonomous vehicles are the next category where lots of semiconductor chips go into, content goes into every vehicle, and that might be worth about $1.5 trillion. And finally, there just isn't enough fossil fuels in the planet, and every country needs to address energy challenge through renewable energy sources. But every piece of renewable energy that you generate has to be converted to energy using a semiconductor chip, and that market is also worth a lot of money. So semiconductors are really the backbone, the foundation on which every technology revolution is going to happen. But of all these, AI is one of the biggest inflection that is going to happen in our lifetimes. But there's a dark side of AI. AI technology as it's used today drives a lot of energy, needs worldwide. So before we all do our next chat GPT query, we should just think a moment, how much is that question going to consume in terms of energy? Because it is a lot. And one of the recent exhaustive studies that Google did and released just last week will tell you that about 80% of the usage, energy usage, is through chips that are used to power the AI data centers, right? So in 2024, just last year, the AI data centers used about 400 terawatt hours. It's hard to wrap our minds around that number of energy. And the data centers are supposed to grow more than 2x in the next 4 years or 5 years. And they'll consume upwards of 900 terawatt hours. And what is that? That's more than 50% of the energy that entire India used this last year. So that's amazing to think that just one piece of technology is going to use more than half the energy that an entire nation uses today. But that's the problem that we have, and that's the problem we need to solve. And if you look at it under the hood, these are the main devices, semiconductor chips, that are responsible for the energy usage. But in a strange twist of fate, they are the very technologies that can also cure the problem. So the industry always invents the problem and cures it. And here we are actually enabling the AI revolution to happen, but the very same chips need to improve in order to address the energy consumption problem. And these are essentially through more energy efficient GPUs and CPUs, high performance memory, DRAM memory, and high bandwidth memory stacked DRAM chips, and advanced packaging, which can actually put many chips onto one package, which is how AI data centers are run today. So how do we do this, right? If you look at Applied Materials, we are a global company, and we have been enabling customer success globally. And we are actually one of the world's first equipment company, pure play equipment company. That was founded even before Intel was founded, right? And we have quite a bit of end-to-end capabilities going from design, R&D, deep tech R&D, all the way up to manufacturing and supporting our customers worldwide. And our presence is such that we bring a lot of capabilities into every region that Applied Materials operates in. And we are proud to say we have more than 20+ years of heritage in India. And I'll show you a little bit of how we have built that up very systematically out here in India. Not only that, we have a very broad portfolio of products. Given that we have about 57 years of history behind us, we play in almost every segment of the market, except for lithography that Mr. Fouquet actually just talked about in the ASML section. So we bring a lot of capabilities to any customer who's putting up fabs and factories anywhere in the world. And we look forward to actually engaging with India and doing the same. If you look at Applied's history, how we're actually enabling and accelerating India's semiconductor mission, we have over the 20+ years put a lot of core capabilities in place. We employ thousands of engineers in our head office in Bangalore. We're situated in 5 locations in India. And we go all the way from product design, deep university R&D, to actually fab automation, software and services, and advanced software development for all our equipment and services that happen out here in India, and also back office, IT infra, and operations. But now we are actually taking a step ahead. Not only that, but we actually have the first functioning 300mm lab facility out here in Bangalore, where you can actually process and hold wafers in your hand with actual process development and materials put on the wafers. So we have a very strong foundation that we have built here in India over the 20+ years, and we would love to grow that, along with the future growth that's going to happen in India's factories. If you look at India's semiconductor mission, we're excited to see that about 6 projects were announced as of 2024, but now we have 4 more coming, so this is real. The revolution is actually happening here in India, and we need to be ready for it as providers of equipment and services. But if you actually look at India's fab focus, it's very interesting where India is focusing. Yes, we talk a lot about AI. India is not after those cutting-edge 2-nanometer chips that are actually required for AI. However, that's not the only type of chip required for AI. For that energy consumption that we talked about, for energy generation, distribution, transmission, and storage, there's a lot of chips that are required. And it's nice to see India putting a lot of focus in the initial fabs with silicon power devices made of silicon carbide. We saw this example of 6M that's starting up. mature logic devices that Tata Fab is focused on, and a lot of chip packaging, which are actually essential technologies and building blocks for AI-related and energy storage systems. So it's nice to see that India's focus is in the right place, starting off actually the semiconductor factories. And we are actually proud to be the leading provider in many of these sectors that India is playing in advanced packaging, as well as what we call ICAPS, which is IoT, communication, automotive, power, and sensor chips, and also mature logic devices that are used for like many, many applications that the Tata Fab talks about. But there's another thing that's important when you actually start building factories and go into semiconductors. And this is something that Prime Minister Modi alluded to. It's the need to actually move fast. Semiconductor is not for faint of heart. Even when you start making semiconductors, you have to always adjust very quickly to changing market conditions and make sure that you have the talent and capacity to move with speed. And so those two things are going to be very critical for India as it gets going, to make sure we have the DNA built into the system to act very, very fast. And why is this important, right? Today we look at India this way, right? India is trying very, very hard and putting a lot of resources on how to manufacture chips inside the country. And that's very commendable because you have to do that first step. But when you look at it, quite a few countries today can manufacture chips. But very few can actually invent new technologies that are required to make new chips or even invent new chips. So it's a domain of very few countries, right? So we actually think that India shouldn't stop here. It has a lot to offer to the world in moving the future semiconductor technologies, right? It has the talent, the drive, the ambition, and the potential, we feel, to go from just manufacturing and making chips into just inventing new chips altogether. So in short, it's going from make in India to invent in India. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Satish Kupurao ji, they're expressing happiness to be a part of the India semiconductor revolution. Thank you, sir, for your keynote address. Our next keynote speaker is Mr. Go Okuba, Takeshi Go Okuba, Corporate Officer and Executive Vice President and General Manager from Toyota Electron Limited. Please put your hands together and let's welcome him. He's got more than 4 decades of experience. He has built progressive leadership roles. Please come, sir, and a hearty welcome to you.
Okay, good afternoon, gentlemen. The Mera Nam Go Okubo Tokyo Electron. Down nearby this opportunity. Yeah, once again, thank you for this opportunity to speak at the SEMICON India. So, as everybody said, so I also feel that India has a great potential growth in terms of science, technology, economy, and populations, no doubt. It's very exciting to see India focusing on efforts on semiconductors. So semiconductor applications are extensive and are becoming increasingly important for the future. Notwithstanding the geopolitical disruption in the trade, so we still see a market demand accelerate the semiconductor the content. So we are now in era of AI with the advancement in digital network and AI, ICT, information, and communication technology is expected to go further. However, with the increasing AI utilizations, as somebody said, consumption of energy will increase. The rising concern about power supply and global warming. In this context, we need to balance digitalization and decarbonization, the digital and green transitions, which is our shared global objective. Digital and green consist of two elements, the green by digital and green by digital, green of digital. So the first, the green by digital, this means realizing a green society through the power of digital technology. Examples include smart city, digital transformation for the manufacturing, and smart grid. The second is green of digital. This refers to promoting the energy efficiency and ICT infrastructure, such as electronic devices like PCs and smartphone, data center, and networks. So semiconductors are indispensable in achieving this digital and green, the vision realizing a sustainable futures. Development of semiconductor technology is driven by these core principles: higher speed, scaling down, higher reliability, and low power consumptions. These factors have always served as a guideline for semiconductor evolutions, and I believe they will become even more important going forward. So there are two approaches in semiconductor manufacturing. We'll continue trading. The one with the scaling. As you may know, historical semiconductors have improved the performance with reduced the cost with mutualizations. The other is heterogeneous integrations, a technology that integrates the multiple functions into one system. A good example of scaling and heterogeneous integration is semiconductors for AI. Everybody says about. AI system uses leading-edge processors such as GPU and high bandwidth memory. The processor contains 10 over the billion of nanometer scale transistors, while memory needs capacitor scaling with stacked HBM. With heterogeneous integration, we can combine high-end GPU with high bandwidth memories on a silicon interposer substrate, so enabling high-performance AI energy. So therefore, semiconductor innovation will progress by utilizing not only traditional scaling, but also heterogeneous integration. So Tokyo Electron is one of the leading-edge suppliers of semiconductor manufacturing equipment. Since our founding over 6 years ago, we have provided innovative technology and reliable services. We offer a wide range of products that cover both front-end and back-end advanced package as well. We hold the record of industry largest install bases and highest number of patents. So because of these achievements, we have got respected from customers around the world. And here in India, we can contribute with innovative technology and the best support. So to realize Make in India semiconductor journey, the development of technology, people, and infrastructure are necessary. We are eager to utilize highly talented workforce in India, and we consider development of semiconductor skills as an important action ahead. A wide range engineering skills in the mechanical, electronical, and software. So especially AI and robotics are important foundation. By supporting workforce development in India's semiconductor sector, we can help to build a robust ecosystem in India. This foundation will also in the future enable Tokyo Electron to accelerate its innovative technology development. So our short-term goals are to establish our engineering support infrastructure at Dwyer to support Tata Semiconductor, and also to create foundation engineering development team in Bangalore with top Indian talent. The third is expand our university relationships beyond like IIT Bombay and IISc Bangalore. And lastly, continue investing in upskilling Indian talent in the semiconductor technologies. So let me touch about the last weekend event. So last weekend, the Japan-India Summit was held, where both countries shared their determinations to strengthen the collaboration across a wide range of industries. In the part of joint statement, so Japan invests about the 10 trillion yen, just about 70 billion US dollar, and we realized the 500,000 workforce human interaction within 5 years. So we also made commitment to Prime Minister Modi ji, who visited our facility last week to contribute to the sustainable growth of the Indian semiconductor industries. So we are deeply impressed with outstanding talent in India. As a leading company, Tokyo Electron is proud to contribute to the development of semiconductor ecosystem in India. I have a confidence that India's semiconductor industry will grow rapidly and become a global semiconductor powerhouse. So together, let's grow and shape the future of semiconductor industry. So that's all from me. Thank you very much for your attention. ありがとうございました。
Complementing the talent pool available in India, and pretty sure with joining hands together, India will become a superpower in semiconductor. Thank you, Mr. Go Okuba, for your keynote address. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have one more session before we all break for lunch. This is a very important panel discussion about building the semiconductor fab supply chain in India. As you are all aware, creating a world-class semiconductor ecosystem requires a strong coordinated supply chain that spans specialty chemicals, advanced materials, cutting-edge equipment, logistics, and skilled talent. Moderating today's discussions, Mr. Kai Beckmann, the CEO of Merck AMD, will guide the conversation. So put your hands together to Mr. Kai Beckmann to initiate this all-important panel discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. Once again, please, friends at the back. Yeah.
Thank you, and good afternoon. There's one more session to go before we get to go to lunch. So the bad news is there's one more session to go. The good news is it will be a panel, so it will be more exciting. It will be like 6 at the price of 1. So that's the advantage of a panel. I'm now supposed to give you a short intro on what we're talking about. We are now zooming out. Let me see. We are now zooming out a bit from what we have seen. We have seen amazing equipment companies presenting over the past hour and giving us an idea about the advanced equipment needed for making semiconductors. Now we are zooming out, look at the entire supply chain. We have to build to make India one of the top 5 nations producing semiconductors. You have to build a full ecosystem. You have to build a full supply chain, and this is what this panel is all about. So, and if you look into what that means, what the supply chain means is, at the end, you can imagine it as a philharmonic orchestra. Only if every instrument is playing well, then the symphony sounds good. So you need the materials, you need the equipment, you need the fabs being built, and all of the different components have to go together well. And you know, to make one leading-edge chip, 1,500 process steps roundabout are required, and it will take 3 months to make it. And all these steps, of course, require the interaction of the different components of the value chain. So at the end, we're talking about 50 to 60 vendors for materials, 100 vendors for different equipment and parts of the equipment, and they have to work together. So Merck has its part in it. I was explaining that in the morning session already. Meanwhile, the number has grown. It's more than 4,500 people working in India for our company since more than 57 years. We are present over here and spanning across all different areas of our offering: electronics, life science, and healthcare in 3 different sites and 8 different offices all around the nation. So that is what we can contribute to cover the full spectrum of different materials across the entire wafer processing cycle or circle, if you want to say that, and all different materials required to make the chip, from patterning to doping and cleaning, etching, planarization, deposition included here as well as heterogeneous integration, as just explained by Tokyo Electron. So that is what the company covers, including the equipment required to deliver these materials, projects to build the fabs, and services to operate the fabs. This is what Merck contributes, and we are working in the fab itself with our solutions, as well as in the sub-fab for delivery systems and the respective services. Yeah, so that is giving us an idea on how different things come together and what my company is contributing to this picture as Merck. And of course, now I'm privileged to have an exciting panel together that covers the full spectrum of different components of the semiconductor value chain. So, and that panel will discuss, of course, how do we build this supply chain, how do we make it work, how do we create the resilience of a local supply chain, and at the end, what does it take as capabilities in a country to make this supply chain work properly. Let's have a quick look at the panel. So may I introduce now the panelists to you. First, we have Ms. Mona Kandar, and she is a Principal Secretary to the Government of Gujarat. She has over 20 years of experience in public institutions. She was instrumental in formulating and executing the state's digital and technology areas. She served as the helm leading the early development and growth of the semiconductor industry sector in Gujarat. So may I ask Ms. Mona Kandar on stage, please. Welcome, Ms. Mona Kandar. Then we have Mr. Srinivas Satya, SVP Components Business and Chief Supply Chain Officer at Tata Electronics. He has 3 decades of experience in the semiconductor industry. Before joining Tata Electronics, he served a significant tenure at Applied Materials. May I ask Mr. Srinivas Satya on stage as well. Great to see you here. Then we have Dr. Pine Haas, VP, Head of Global Central Product Engineering at KLA, more than 30 years of experience in the semiconductor equipment industry, including a distinguished career that began at NASA. Brian, good to have you on stage. Then we have Mr. Haris Osman, SVP Semiconductor Technology Platform at IMEC, more than 30 years of experience in the semiconductor industry, having started his career in India and accumulated 17 years of experience at IMEC. Please welcome him on stage. And lastly, we have Mr. Koti Vadlamudi, EVP and GM Global Business Units at Jacobs, with more than 30 years at Jacobs, with strong experience in cutting-edge construction projects in semiconductor, life science, and advanced manufacturing. Then, Koti, good to have you on stage. So now let's move to the panel. So I was volunteered to moderate a panel. It's like a second career opportunity for me. I've never moderated a panel. This is what qualifies me already. So good to see you. Of course, we are excellently prepared. We have tons of questions that covers us till the evening. So, so let me start with the first view, and let's start kind of right where the end product will be visible with Tata. Tata Electronics is making significant progress in building India's first semiconductor fabrication plant in Gujarat, and so for Srinivas, how do you view the current state of the supply chain in India, and what are specific challenges that you are facing, and what are your expectations from a supplier to support the fabs?
Thank you, Kai. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a privilege to be here. We've come a long way in the last 2 years, so fantastic time to reflect on how far we've come and what else are our challenges. First and foremost, thanks for the question, Kai. Not just in Gujarat, but we are also making significant progress in Assam with our packaging facility. So many of my comments go across both these facilities. Overall, I would say the semiconductor supply chain is still pretty nascent, but very, very encouraging signs of the progress in the recent times. Whether you look at infrastructure or the policy support, and most importantly, the engagement we are seeing from the global players. We've had many folks come before us and talk about their footprint here in the country. There are some very positive signs in there. That doesn't mean that there aren't challenges. There are plenty of challenges still in infrastructure, the talent that is very fab specific for operating the fabs day in, day out, logistics, just your serviceability of the precision equipment. These are all the challenges that I think our ecosystem and our supply chain is still not solved yet, but we are going to do that. If I have to use my opportunity to be a little bit more specific with what my expectations from the suppliers is, I'll start first with just the construction, the design of the construction of these facilities. It's a very specialized skill set. We still have gaps in India context, India specific, cost-effective semiconductor fab design, depth of capabilities in the country. There, my request to the suppliers would be to take a long-term view. This is not the only semiconductor front-end fab you will see in the country. There are many more coming. Now is the time to really commit to the country and have those India-specific, cost-effective solutions. I'm kind of starting at the very beginning from designing the facility itself. On the equipment side, great to see the presence of many of the large players in the country, but you know it's not just about the top 10 or 12 large equipment players. You need another 50 to 100 equipment suppliers, equally important, who need to be in the country.
So for that, again, we request them to come work with us. The government is very supportive in providing them the starting impetus to get started in the country. So there are many schemes and much support available from Mona ma'am and others in the different state governments to help with the equipment, deepening their capabilities in the country. Then we have the whole materials and gases and so on, right? The very, very high-end fab-specific gases definitely is a concern for us. There, I think the best way to quickly come up to speed, again, I'll go back to what even our Prime Minister said in the morning, right? We started late, but we need to do some unique things to catch up on those things. So one good way to do that would be to have the right kind of partnerships with local players. We've seen some examples of it, particularly in Assam already, where there's been a good marriage between some local, very strong folks who might not have had the semiconductor-specific experience, but they are in many other related domains. You partner them up with the global players, we can very quickly bring the best of both worlds. So I think there are many such opportunities in the gases, materials, and so on. So that's one area. If you now look at just the logistics, again, there's been plenty of progress there. But again, I think that's an area where we have to think about packaging solutions, the cold storage, how do we do that from beginning to the end, thinking about the quantities, stocking levels, and so on, making sure you have the solutions that are uniquely geared, relatively smaller quantities of consumptions in the initial stages that, over time this will all get solved, the challenges in the initial stages. So I think even in the logistics, we've got some work to do. Some very good progress there with, upgradation of infrastructure so far. But that's an area where I'll request even the logistics partners to come work with us on those options. Just a couple more points from my side. The regulatory aspects here are evolving. They are in a little bit of a flux in there. Whether it's import duties or the environmental norms, the PLI schemes and so on. These are all constantly evolving. So my request to the suppliers is to build in that regulatory agility in your operations. Be well informed, stay, keep your ear to the ground in there so that we avoid those last minute surprises and delays, which can be quite catastrophic given the size of the investments that we are all putting in there. On the broader note, when I think about supply chain at Tata Electronics, just the risk diversification and dual sourcing. We know how geopolitically sensitive this whole industry is. Right from the beginning, we want to ensure our suppliers have the right sort of diversification, whether it's dual location or looking at their tier 1, tier 2 supply chain as well and ensuring there are no critical risks in there. So I'll request our suppliers to also think about building that sort of a resilience in their supply chain. Talent and capability, that's an integral part of supply chain. I'm sure others will speak to it, so I'll skip on that for now. The last thing I'll mention is just making sure our supply chain also is well supported with the right kind of technology in there. The digitization, the trackability of our supply chain. We want to do it right from the beginning. So those are some of the themes I want to implore our suppliers to consider right from the beginning.
Yeah, excellent. I think what you explained shows the complexity of what we all have in front of us. And now but the tough news is this cannot be just done. We cannot just learn as we go. We need to have it in place in order to make you ramp your manufacturing at the right point in time. And this all has to be invested upfront. And a lot of course now we go like backwards from the fab. Then the equipment is needed to get it going. Brian, your domain, so all the equipment has to be in the fab. You need the engineers on the side. You need, of course, to liaise with the material suppliers in order to get the processes going. So how are you bringing your equipment and your tools to support the fabs into India specifically? And do you see capability gaps, particularly in logistics of delicate equipment, in maintenance or in training your engineers specifically over here? Brian.
Well, thanks, Kai. It's a great question. The first thing I think for everyone to realize is that India is not new to KLA, it's not new to our peers who are all critical to this ecosystem. In our case, for KLA, I can speak, we've got a footprint of over 1,500 engineers. Literally, India is already in every one of the product lines at KLA. And we also have quite a bit in the way of facilities infrastructure, quite a bit of hardware engineering here in India as well. So we are quite familiar, at least with the ecosystem, at least portions of it. And we also have actually some small installed base, and of course we're positioned to be able to support a significantly growing and exponential installed base moving forward. I think most of the equipment makers are probably roughly in the same kind of similar situation. But I think what's also critical as we look for that exponential growth, alluded to earlier today, is the capacity to treat the ramp up of facilities here in India very differently than we are used to in environments that have traditionally had quite an industry there. And so we'll call this kind of a greenfield approach, at least in the case of KLA. I know we have a very detailed greenfield infrastructure building program, which allows us to take any greenfield site. We've done this in a few other countries as well, where there was no infrastructure in the area. It was a little different than standard operating procedure to bring up a new fab, because the rest of the infrastructure was not in place to do that. And so it requires quite a bit more attention to do that. That includes up through the general manager and senior executive levels at KLA in this case. It requires specialized training, specialized visits to assure there are various pieces of that infrastructure in place in the local area. So a specialized greenfield fab ramp methodology, a little different than standard operating procedure. But then that gets into the area of talent, and you've also touched on that as well. I think everyone here is going to be resonating with the issue of talent. And so I think we are well prepared for talent development and for training. This is training for the talent we will need within KLA, but also training for our customers in the use of our complex equipment. We've got world-class training facilities all over. Our peers do as well. And we also at times will implement a new training center in a locality once that locality has grown to the point of needing that kind of training investment as well. So we're prepared to do that. We know how to do it well. And then the last piece I'll allude to is literally the entities for selling and serving a customer base versus the engineering entities, and KLA in this case is also developing that kind of entity as well.
No, thanks, Brian. I think this is then the point where then the materials need to be delivered to the tools in order to make the chips. And Srinivas, you have already highlighted the complexity of hazardous goods, complex chemistry in very specialized containers need to be shipped on time at the right place. This is where then Merck comes into play. And we, as I said in the morning session, we cover already 2/3 of the periodic table of elements. And there's a lot of complicated stuff in that list. We're talking well above 500 different, I would say, molecule categories, because if we go on molecule level, then we're talking about thousands. If we talk about then the gases on top of that, that makes it even more complicated. So that requires quite the permits and a highly complicated regulatory environment. I think we'll come to that in a second. I just want to, in between, Harris, IMEC is like, for me, use a language from our other business, is like the petri dish a bit of the semiconductor industry. You see it all in a small space. If I would go to Leuven in Belgium, so now you got the job for IMEC in India, so to drive the development. So could you give us an idea on how you can help to enable the semiconductor industry? Is all your experience, this huge global experience you have built in Leuven back in Belgium, and bringing all the different players together in your labs, in your clean rooms, and how do you translate that into India, and what's the contribution here?
Thank you. So first of all, thank you for inviting IMEC, and thank you for inviting me as a representative of IMEC to speak here. Just to wake you up, how many of you know IMEC? Okay. So maybe I will give you a small introduction of IMEC. IMEC is the most leading research and development company in the domain of semiconductors. We are based in Belgium. Belgium itself is a small country, and IMEC has got over 5,000 researchers doing advanced semiconductor development. All the semiconductor players are aware of IMEC. We have KLA, we have Merck, we have Applied, SML, all of them are there. But for the other audience, IMEC has been there for 40 years. We do what IMEC is famous for is cutting edge research and development in semiconductor technology. We have been doing it, perfecting it over the years. So for India, I think I saw lots of presentations from all of the dignitaries. What I saw missing is an advanced R&D fab. We have an R&D fab in SEL. IMEC is collaborating. We are, as we speak, we are transferring technologies. But IMEC India still needs an advanced R&D fab. And I think, personally, I think it needs to be under the government because it needs significant investment. My message is that do not underestimate the importance of R&D. And typically it takes significant number of years for the technologies to come to manufacturing. That's my second point. My role in IMEC is taking technologies from the research to a step before manufacturing. We call it making it into a platform. We call it, my organization is Semiconductor Technology Platform. So we are taking it from a research stage, which is very low technology readiness level, to a medium to high level. So this is a step that is missing when we talk about tech transfers. So long gone are the days when you can plug and play technologies. You can use the run sheet and key it into the tools. Those days are gone. So it takes quite some effort, even if it is developed technology, it takes quite some effort to implement it in a new fab, especially a new fab like Tata's is building. So the good thing about IMEC is that you can work in the research phase, and also you can work with a set of engineers who have come from the industry. I come from the industry. After 25 years in the industry only, I moved to IMEC. So you can work with the industry experienced engineers to understand the other aspects of R&D, like what is process repeatability, what is the process margin, what is a defect, because these are unknown, in the research area. So how much effort does it take to improve the maturity of the technology, and that will help significantly in bringing it over to a manufacturing site in India. And finally, IMEC has got significant presence of Indians. I think last year Indians took over as the second largest number of nationalities doing research in IMEC. We have over 250 people in IMEC. So there's a lot of exchange of research and development ideas possible. So sky's the limit to cooperate with IMEC to bring forward India's semiconductor dreams. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Excellent. This is worth an applause. Yeah. And I couldn't imagine anyone visiting a SEMICON trade show to not know IMEC. So I couldn't imagine that. So, well, I think it's such a well-known brand in the SEMICON industry. And we have already heard 3 instruments of the Philharmonic Orchestra I was alluding to. We need a conductor for that, and the conductor, Madame Kanda, typically is the government. It helps to get the whole thing playing the right music jointly. And so, what are the initiatives that the government is undertaking to support the development of the comprehensive supply chain here in India? And for new companies, understanding the regulations could be very complex. So how do you plan to help companies understand the relevant regulations?
So thank you very much. That's a very interesting questions, I'm sure, for the interested investors especially. And thank you for inviting me here. So at the outset, I would like to mention that, government is running a marathon in parallel as well as in partnership with the investors, anchor investors. So it's on like multiple front that government is working, state government along with central government. Let me begin with the policy framework. I would mention more about Gujarat state, but I'm sure other states are equally or even more geared up. So Gujarat state is very much committed and already put in place a policy framework. In fact, Gujarat was the first state to come out with a semiconductor policy. In addition, we have electronics policy, electronic component manufacturing policy, and for downstream application, we have space tech policy, biotech policy, the Global Capability Center policy, and ITIT's policy. That is for supporting the design. So for supporting each aspect, the main fab, packaging, and the ecosystem, the design part, for everything, a policy framework is there. And it is a very proactive policy. It provides matching capex, operating support for operating expenditure, for human resources, and for overall development. So with this policy framework, we are also working on providing industrial infrastructure, more of for setting up or developing, science park, the way we see in Taiwan, in China, like that. So in Gujarat, we are developing a huge SEMICON city at Dholera. It is mainly considering fab. Then we are also developing a SEMICON hub at Sanand. It is mainly for packaging industry. Then at Gift City, we have a tech city, and that is mainly for design. So when we talk about Dholera SEMICON city, we are focusing on utilities with 100% redundancy, so power, gas, water supply, everything has been provided with, and we have 100% redundancy at source and at distribution level. Then next we come to infrastructure. So there is a dedicated captive international airport there, a dedicated national express highway, a dedicated railway, a dedicated port. So, all their import and whatever, they need to, because it's a global and regional supply chain, so these things are required. In addition to that, we're also providing for social infrastructure. So, hospitals, school, residential facilities, dormitories, also a lot of focus on environment from the very beginning. So, a tertiary level common effluent treatment plant, where like 70% of the effluents are supposed to be recycled, and spatial arrangement for a deep sea discharge, so 30% will be a deep sea discharge. So all these environmental parameters are also taken care of. We're also focusing on master planning, especially for supply chain partners. So a lot of focus out there also. In addition, a lot of focus on human resource development. So we are working on a hub and spoke model kind of human resource development initiative, where we have a hub at IIT Gandhinagar, a co-hub, and 8 spokes. And there will be about 5 to 10 institutions for design and research and development. So it's a very elaborative one. And to facilitate the anchor investors, we hold almost every week a coordination committee where almost about 75 offices from the state and center, they come together, and lot of focus on building institutions. Like we have an administrative institution, we have a dedicated mission at state level as well. We have been working on revising or rebuilding our SEZ kind of framework, and it was at such a short, and within such a short time period, which we did for Micron, we are doing now for CG, we are also doing for Keynes. So all these institutions are being built. We are reframing our labor laws also. So a lot of things, the government is so much active, and we are all out to facilitate the anchor investors in all possible manner.
Excellent, thank you very much, because a very impressive, very comprehensive set of initiatives. I think what what I notice is that you have taken the examples of other countries intensively into consideration to learn from those, which is a very impressive way of doing that. So congratulations for the progress. Now every orchestra needs kind of a bass drum, Koti, if I may use that analogy, because you have to build the fab. This is, without the fab, without the bricks and mortar, nothing is going to happen. And Jacobs, of course, is a leading company in that space. And so what are the key challenges that you see, Koti, of building the local ecosystem for building the fab, for the suppliers, of making that? How crucial is that ecosystem for the long-term success of the semiconductor manufacturing in India?
Yeah, thanks, Kai. And I like the analogy. Maybe I'll use some more music analogies in answering the question. But first, just by introduction, I'm Koti Vadlamudi. Been 30 years with Jacobs, and Jacobs is a global provider of architectural engineering, program and construction management services in critical projects that span infrastructure to advanced facilities. Here in India, we have about 4,000 staff, so a fairly significant workforce. We're really proud of the presence that we have here. It's super encouraging to hear Mona talk about the strategies for attracting hubs and investment. And we're excited about being a partner in making that come to fruition. Satya talked a little bit about some of the features of the design and how we see it. This is an area where the facility, the fab facility, and the performance of the facility is really, really, really critical, and done correctly, positively impacts the performance and the quality of the product. If we underappreciate that, it can adversely affect the product quality. So it's really, really paramount that we capitalize on skill sets and take the experience across other sectors across the world that have a little bit more maturity. And so this is about creating a permissive climate so that there's knowledge transfer from engineers, whether they're in the US or Europe, and bringing that to India. So as I was listening to some of the statistics, I think India is really advantaged by graduating, I think it was over 1 million engineers a year. We need to sustain that development and enable those technical resources to be able to bring these fabs to life.
Yeah. Excellent. I think you have explained it very well, how to bring all these different pieces together to make it happen. Since now the organizers get more and more anxious about us missing lunch, I will do the last questions a bit more in a rapid fire approach. So maybe it's 2 questions. The first one goes in that sequence, Srinivas, to you, to Harris, and Madame Kanda, then to you, is on the talent side of things, because it's absolutely crucial. And of course, now talking in India about talent development seems to be a bit redundant, because we saw that room filled with talent in the morning. There were so many students in this room. It was quite impressive to see that, and this is developing like the source of global talent, not just for the local purpose. But there are specific needs that you may want to consider. So, and could you please outline in a short answer specific types of talent, the specific needs in terms of the dynamics of the industry, needs in terms of the skill sets required, and how can we help cultivating that talent base? So Srinivas, if you want to start on this one.
Sure. Thank you again. I'll keep it real short here. The theme of my answer really is about precision in talent alignment. We know what the need is. Semiconductor industry is not monolithic. There are, even between a fab and an ATMP facility, your talent needs are unique in their own way. From equipment, operations, device, yield, facilities management, those in itself are very complex, as Koti was just saying. So the talent needs are not monolithic. They span across a wide variety of skills. So that's what the problem statement is. When you think about solution now, we have the numbers, right? Again, Koti mentioned 1.5 million engineers graduating. We have the world-class research institutes in the country, IITs, IIScs, tier 1 institutes, beautiful, beautiful institutes, academic and research institutes. We also have the design ecosystem very well here. Every global chip company has a large design footprint. I think 10% of world's VLSI engineers are in Bangalore, when I last read it, right? So we have those. So what is really the gap? I think it's all about that aligning the right skills, right roles at the right times. And I would say there are maybe 3 things we can do. The industry-academia collaboration, we can take some lessons from how even TSMC's curriculum is incorporated into some of the academic institutions in Taiwan. I'm just jumping and giving you a very specific example to kind of give you the depth of collaboration that is needed between academia and industry players. It's not just about saying, these are the skills. I think industry has to do a lot more in partnering with the academia. They have to really understand what is required, and they have to then go implement it and make it attractive for the students to go do that. The fab-oriented vocational training. The only way I learned how to operate semiconductor tools, I lived in Taiwan for 2 years, South Korea for a few years, every fab in the world when I was young. That's the only way eventually you will learn how to operate the semiconductor tools. So how do you get the students here to get that kind of a training? You just have to provide that vocational training. Again, the industry has the ecosystem players, the equipment partners, so on, with Tatas and other manufacturers, with the academic institutes, have to create that hands-on training opportunity to give the students both the excitement, to make it look like, it's the right kind of thing to get your hands in and learn, make it really exciting for them. We do have pretty mature talent in, if not semiconductor industry, in related industry, whether it's pharma, solar, EV, so on. Maybe there are opportunities to not to go hurt those industries. Those have their own growth trajectory and talent needs by themselves. But there could be some good cross-proliferation of talent from those industries to jumpstart what is needed for this industry. So those are some of the top things that I can think of to get this talent equation moving faster.
Yeah. No, thank you. And perhaps first I would like to see how is the R&D point of view, and I will get you then to conclude on what could the government do to support that. But Harris, maybe from an R&D point of view, anything to add?
I think a quick answer is come to IMEC. So we have several hundred PhD programs every year, and these PhD programs are aligned with the strategy of IMEC, and which is aligned with the strategy of the industry. So they are industry relevant PhD programs. That's very critical. Another thing we do is we see a huge growth in the photonics domain. So we recently started a course which is a 1-year master program for master students actually. So it's kind of extending your skills. We also collaborate with the universities. There are programs, some of the IMEC staff has got a 10% teaching option in the universities, which is a great opportunity to connect with the university and the industry. And they also can influence the content of the university students, actually, because many of those are very outdated. So that needs a revision every few years. I think all these are, we are all struggling to get the right talent, but taking small steps like this.
Oh, thank you. Now, Madam Kanda, now it's on you. So how can the government support that program, and what's your part?
So just to build upon what Srinivas said, I'll call it as industry, academia, and government collaboration. I would just like to give a very brief example of what we did for Micron, and we are doing for Tata also, and our other anchor investors as well. Like with PDU, one of the academic institutions, STEM academic institution, and Micron, we worked on a capacity building project where Micron contributed through equipments. PDU had their own premises and campus, and government supported to build a clean room. So for providing hands-on training, all three came together. we will be giving a joint certification to the trainees there, and also the modules and everything worked out as per the requirement of Micron. So we are like onboarding industry from the very beginning, and for our hub and spoke framework also, we are looking at a lot of international collaboration as well. So that is what government is doing, and industry has given us a specific requirement for workers, for technicians, for engineers, and for senior technical management. So we are working on all those requirements. We are doing similar thing for Tata. We are working with IIT Gandhinagar, Tata, and we are also working with JICA. So JICA is likely to support us with the equipments. IIT Gandhinagar is providing the premises, and Tata will work on the modules and other things, and we will be supporting for clean rooms. So this is the kind of model that we have adopted, and we are trying to see that in our larger framework, we take care of the research and development requirement as well, and capacity building requirement as well. And almost 14 institutions, government institutions, they have introduced at BTech and master's level academic modules, and they have also now taken up PhD related studies in this sector. So a lot of initiative on that front also we are taking, but one very important good news that we have been receiving from our anchor investor, they said that the requirement that they anticipated for training turned out to be much lesser. And they found that the talent in India, there is a lot of fire in belly, and they are actually quite ready for the task they are going to perform. And another very important thing, our policies at present, they are addressing mainly the legacy technology development. But several of them are coming that we want to work on the frontier technology and give us support for that also, maybe at a smaller level. So when we are providing so much support for the legacy technology, adopting legacy technology, let us also begin simultaneously for frontier technologies, and which is very heartening.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
we are working on all of that.
Yeah, no, thank you, Madam Kanda. For that perspective, now we'd want to turn the perspective, Koti and Brian, for you. And so, Brian, I will give you then kind of the final conclusion on that, which is, what can the government do to support you better on that journey? So what would be on your wish list if you had a couple of Christmas wishes for the government? So what would you put on the list, and how can the support further improve? Maybe, Koti, we start with you, and Brian, you can bring it home.
Sure. Thanks, Kai.
Koti, yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah, I said it earlier. I think when Jacobs has a global workforce, and we have the opportunity to do knowledge transfer and capitalize on the fact that we've been in this industry, in the semi-industry, for multiple decades, and so enabling a permissive client that allows for the seamless transition of knowledge transfer is probably, I think, one of the key elements. And the second, when we get into the construction phase, there are some critical skill sets that we need to learn from the rest of the world on how to apply. So specialty welding of high purity systems as an example. So I think we should incent and create a climate where we can appropriate that knowledge transfer. Yeah, that would be my wish.
Thank you. Brian.
I'd like to build a little bit on that point, which is we have seen in some other greenfield environments where the locality was really not prepared for things like the degree of fire inspection and qualification and permitting for such an unusual industry.
Yeah.
And so to prepare the municipality for doing so effectively helps speed everything up. I would also ask that while it's so critical that there is emphasis behind chip design and wafer fabrication as these core disciplines required to launch this, there's still a whole ecosystem of other critical skills. And whether that's getting people from the bachelor's into master's programs that allow them to specialize in things like ultra-clean technologies and diagnostics that go with it, right? Robotics and automation systems, standards, and ability to comply there. But the last ask, I think, for the government would be one to recognize that This is an industry that deals with very small things, and it can tolerate very, very small deviations in order to hit it.
Yeah.
And so anything that creates a ripple can take a long time to vet through. And so we are in an environment where there's a lot of international changes to compliance and materials and whatnot, and we have to react to those. But do be aware that this is an industry that relies on stability and small, very purposeful incremental change. Anything new and a change that's being introduced does take a long time in order to have its effect. Nothing can turn quickly. So you need to have that mindset. And the government can help to assure some of that stability.
It's a very important point, and thanks a lot for highlighting this once more. I think Prime Minister Modi has highlighted the importance of speed in decision making and getting rid of bureaucracy very impressively in his opening remarks. And you know, we have countries where it takes a year to get a new molecule into high volume manufacturing. It takes a full year to get the permits. And we got countries where it takes a month. And the year is probably more in Europe, and the month is more in Asia. And I think the month is a good benchmark, because at the end of the day, you cannot afford to lose time as much. And this is maybe the area that we would put in the on the wish list. But I would give you a chance for kind of a closing word on the wish list of the gentleman on your left-hand side, and then we bring it home.
Sure, thank you. Actually, this is really an honor. So first of all, on ease of doing business or reducing the bureaucratic burden. So that's very important, and that's why our policy framework, we totally aligned with Government of India in such a manner that we totally cut down on the procedures which we can do away with. So very small example, Government of India did the entire elaborate procedure of giving approval to Micron or to Tata and to CG and Keynes. We just took, you know, less than 1 week to approve, because we totally, avoided all those procedural duplication, only stick to what was required for the state and what was totally state's responsibility. So that is how we have aligned. Now, another example of doing this entire reform in our SEZ laws, especially for semiconductor, that was in a record time of about, less than 2 months. And, you know, so many ministries were involved in this, and state government was also involved. All this happening within 2 months. So it's, you can imagine how, and similarly, there was also an issue which was related to our central bank. You know, it was related to import of gold for Micron. So that we resolved within 15 days. So these are the kind of things, and that's why in our coordination committee, all these offices are represented, and very sincerely they take up whatever institution needs to be built or rebuilt or reformed, and that they do within a timeline. So that is there, and it is being monitored at a very high level. So even at a state government level, we can walk into our chief minister and say this is what is required to be done and we need to do this, and he will ensure. And same is the case with the ministry and even with PM office. So it is, the importance is given at a highest level, and everyone understands the importance of the timeline, the criticality of the sector, and I'm very sure I have experienced that no stone will be left unturned whenever any facilitation is required from any corner of the country.
Excellent, very good. Excellent. So I'm increasingly urged to bring it home. So they made a German moderate the panel in order to get us to lunch on time. That was the intent behind that. Great round of applause for amazing panelists. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, great pleasure. So we get a photo now. So
Yeah. Those of you who forgot to clap can do that now, because they are all standing posing for a photograph. And some of you, as they say normally, that before food, if you put your hands together, the blood circulation improves. So you might have heard it in several conferences. So put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen. Let's break for lunch, and we'll be back here at 2:30 p.m. And for the information of those who might be not aware that where to go for lunch, the guests holding dignitaries passes are requested to move to Juhi, which is in the second floor, and with delegates passes are requested to move to Amaltas, and the visitors and exhibitor pass holders are requested to move to the food court, and behind the exhibition hall, the food is arranged. So let's break for lunch, enjoy your time at the lunch table, and do come back in 30 minutes. Namaskar.